Welcome back to The Evil Within. You can tell by your almost black screen that we're playing on Kurayami mode. This is the assignment, Chapter 1. The DLCs for The Evil Within are released as 2 DLCs, the assignment and the consequence. The assignment covers Chapters 1 and 2, and the consequence covers Chapters 3 and 4. We survived our first encounter with Shade. If you notice that Shade was looking for something, she's hunting. She's the hunter in the dark, and she's hunting Leslie. Not at this point Kidman, though she would have probably eaten Kidman the same way she ate that haunted that was there. She's looking for Leslie because she's from Ruvik. Ruvik has sent her out into the world looking for Leslie. He's trying to find Leslie. If you remember from the Akumu series where we talked about the constructs of how Stim is rendered, that Leslie had created a sanctuary.
What? Terminated? Maybe I can force it open with the computer.
And Ruvik is, kind of beating on the walls trying to get into the sanctuary, but he's also looking for a door. And so, if you notice, the constructs here is that Shade, this creature that's about to fall out of the ceiling, so she can't see where she fell from because it's just complete black screen until she gets there with her light. But she's looking for the door. And you'll see that very clearly in just a few minutes when she opens the door. So she's looking for the door into Leslie's sanctuary. We talked all through the Akumu series why Ruvik wants Leslie. He can escape Stim by using Leslie's body as his vessel. That's why you'll also often hear Shade saying Leslie, and then she'll say your body. Can't mimic her exactly, but that really creepy way she says your body. She's looking for the vessel for Ruvik. She eats the haunted in order to gain enough bioelectrical energy to not have to have where she can be self-sustained, basically. And so at this point, she doesn't really know about Kidman, but things are about to change. Just as Sebastian learned how to use green gel to make himself more powerful the way Ruvik does inside a Stim, Kidman just learned something about the Stim system herself there. She can use her light to open doors as well. Every time she does that, though, that kind of overcomes her own inoculation that's keeping her hidden from Ruvik. Every time she opens a passageway like that, that's kind of like it's kind of like a tripwire is on it. She's opening some passageway inside the Stim system, and by doing so, that at least makes him aware that somebody's in there doing that.
If the system is activated, you'll hear a high-pitched noise. From then, we can't do anything to help.
What's gonna happen to me?
All I can say is that it'll be unsettling, but Leslie will be in there with you. You'll need to find him.
This is from before. Leslie.
Now,
is he really here?
In a lot of ways, you can think of Stim, the rendering system we talked about in Akumu, how there's rendering conflicts, like when it's trying to render a single landscape or a single place from the combined memories of multiple people, that becomes a problem.
Leslie,
and things shift around and there's earthquakes, and the world looks like it's rending itself asunder, right? Tearing itself apart. At the moment, we're just with Kidman. Kidman's essentially alone, so she's projecting the world. She's projecting Mobius because she's part of Mobius, and she's coming mostly from the physical world is coming a lot from her memories. Now, her memories probably don't have a lot of precision, and Ruvik is, screwing with him as he does with everything. He's also got Shade looking in every corner of the system. So probing into Kidman's mind is the same as she's probing around looking. By doing so, the environment's not, obviously it's got some influence from Ruvik. You're going to meet Haunted. You're going to see, if you watch real close up in the top left corner, you'll see a Haunted's feet. He'll walk across there. See, he's walking across, I guess, from the top right corner over towards the center of the screen there. And he's never there. In the non-Akumi mode, you can see him much better. I remember jumping up and looking for him. He's not there. So, I mean, it's not completely Kidman rendering everything here, but she's going from place to place and she's kind of controlling the environment with her rendering. She's a little bit less susceptible to Ruvik's notice because of the inoculation, so she has a little bit more control over the subconscious environment that she's creating. But another key thing to think about is that she's rendering it, but she, like all humans, have an emotional state too. And she's not just rendering a physical environment, she's bringing with her emotions. The same way, like when you go to sleep at night and you bring your emotions of the day, if you're not paying attention, there's 13 on one painting, a 19 on another, and a 16 on that. Just to make sure that's the combination to this safe. I want you to know how I knew these numbers, that I didn't just walk up to the safe and put in 3 numbers out of random and be right. Okay, so she's brought in, like when you go to bed at night and you go to sleep, you bring your emotions, your thoughts about the day come with you. And if you've ever tried, high functioning people often think about what their day was, think about what they want to change, what they need to do tomorrow. They prep themselves to solve problems tomorrow. And as she has done this, you can think of it as her subconscious she was priming her subconscious to remember what she's here doing. And so these flashbacks that you're getting of, I mean, the first episode was almost completely flashbacks to her at Mobius talking to the administrator about what her role was, what her job was, what she was supposed to do. And even here, you're still seeing her reminding herself that I've got to find Leslie, that Leslie is the key. I've got to find Leslie. And one thing that we didn't really touch on in the last episode, but which was said by the administrator and is going to be said again in this episode, is that Mobius considers the KCPD people that she's there with, Sebastian and Joseph, who you heard talking, and she said, "What are those two doing here?" That Mobius considers them expendable. And that's going to become a key phrasing, and it becomes more and more ominous as the game goes on. My reading of that is that her subconscious picks up on these guys that I've been working with for a year or so now. They're good people. I know they're good people. And Expendable sounds like, okay, I don't have to necessarily do anything to save them. But her subconscious is reading more into that than simply, you don't have to worry about saving them. It starts to become ominous. And that starts to be a real root of a problem for Kidman. Balancing her mission with her subconscious becomes a real problem as we progress. But for right now, it's enough to know that she's brought some of her emotional state with her. She's also rendering Mobius because she thinks she's here on a Mobius mission. So Mobius is central to what she thinks she's doing. Therefore, this looks like Mobius, or at least her vision of what the internals of Mobius might look like. Whether or not, how much of Mobius, the internals of Mobius headquarters or whatever you would call it, are, we don't really know. The only thing to mention about the scene that we're seeing right now is you could hear that kind of busy signal early on when she first walked into the room. You have to go over and touch that cell phone. If you don't touch the cell phone, you can't call it. Once you've touched it, you can use this phone to call it, and you can recreate the prank call that we did in the first episode. You can recreate it here with this pale-looking zombie that will run in there, and you can lock him in the room. Once they're locked into the room, they can open doors, but they can't open locked doors. And once that turns red like that, he can never open that. So you can hear him beating on it. It won't matter. Now, one thing that's more noticeable in Kurayami mode, so you might call it even helpful, is that little glow coming from the item that you have to pick up is, you're looking at a black screen with a blue dot on it. Pretty easy to not miss the blue dot. If you're not playing on Kurayami mode, that blue dot isn't necessarily as visible. So in some ways, Kurayami actually helps. It will point out things to you that you might have otherwise missed. But I want to point out how easy it is to get lost. Like, where is she now? I mean, all there was a camera spin there, and if you're not careful, you can lose where you are in relation to the whole room. Now, I found it was much easier to go over to the other side of the room to get through the door, to be on the side of the door that has the key lock on it. So I just found it easier to go from the left side of the door. Another thing we didn't talk about in the last episode was when the nurse was giving Kidman a inoculation, right? And the administrator is standing there asking her those probing questions that are making her spider senses tingle about what are these people actually asking me. But we were zoomed back and we were standing behind the administrator, and his hand was down, and there was this mark, almost like a railroad spike type mark on his hand, and black ooze started coming out of that as she was going under. You're going to see that in the symbol for Mobius coming up here. There's going to be a shadow puzzle when she goes down these stairs. I guess I short-circuited that a little bit, but there's a shadow puzzle here, and you have to put that railroad spike on the stars. And so that railroad spike is a kind of critical thing.
Don't you ever forget it. You're one of us now.
That's her subconscious where she trained herself to remember what she's supposed to be doing, that she's part of Mobius, and that she's here. But now here's the shadow puzzle, and you've got to put the railroad spike into the stars. The shadow of the railroad spike, not the railroad spike itself. I had a real hard time with these puzzles, just getting the light to be stable. And to me, it looks like she needed to be higher. Like, you need the railroad spike lower. But anyway, we got through it. But the key there is that symbol. That symbol was the same symbol that was on the administrator's hand that the black ooze started coming out of. So her subconscious is taking some sort of symbol from the Mobius, placing it on the administrator because he's part of Mobius, and saying there's something troublesome or worrisome about it. And you see it in the middle of all the Mobius symbols, like on the wall here. Anytime you see it, shine your light at it, you'll get a treat.
After months of secrets, subterfuge, and indoctrination, they brought me into their fold. This place is elaborate, to say the least. Despite the modernistic visage, the research they have been doing here seems to date back to over a century ago. This place has history, and from what I can grasp, this facility is only one branch of many. Institutions, powerful families, their reach seems grand, and therefore the possibilities for me seem equally as rich. Clearly, my own unique methods at Beacon have piqued their interest, and I am most grateful for the opportunity. Most of what the researchers have been working on, however, seems archaic by today's standards. They told me budget is of no concern. Results are the only thing that matter. Juggling duties here and at the hospital seems manageable, but Reuben, comparatively insignificant, but even at his young age, his studies are remarkable. Perhaps one day he will even assist me with my work here.
This is not a negotiation, Dr. Jimenez. We're expected to reach a solution, hence the founding of this facility.
I understand that, and I appreciate the time you've given me.
Time has a limit. And we're approaching that point. If you've outspent your usefulness, we will need to find someone more suitable.
Let's not be so hasty. I've done tests with our visual diagnosis, and there is something I must speak to you about. Please, come with me. The projector is in the next room.
Now, these ghosts of the apparitions, they're the same thing that we saw in parts of the main game with Sebastian. Sebastian saw Dr. Jimenez, the man in the white coat there, talking to Ruben. And in there was a real quick, if you got a glimpse of it, I didn't get my light up, so it wasn't as clear as I might have liked it, but Ruvik was inside there. A man in a white cloak. We all are very familiar with him from the main game. But that's an indication that Ruvik, even though she's supposed to be hidden from him, he was able to find her, at least in some ways, because she's using her flashlight the way Shade is using her light, uncovering secrets, uncovering lost doorways, lost memories.
It's my hypothesis that we haven't succeeded because so far we've only been using visuals, audio stimuli, passive influence, even on my patients with limited mental capacity. This method is rejected by the user. If we are to accomplish what we intend, we will need to refocus. We need direct access.
And what do you propose?
It's, how shall I say, a pet project of sorts. A mechochemical process. With it, we should be able to have a direct influence on the individual, potentially even access their subconscious. I have the data in the next room. Let me show you.
Now, this is information that Kidman's probably not supposed to have.
That when I was brought here.
But you can see where we were building our hypothesis that Mobius's purpose for the stem is subconscious control. Apparently, their early rudimentary, as Jimenez was pointing out, rudimentary research was based on audiovisual subliminal messaging, basically. And you heard Kidman say that they even used it on her. So to some degree, she's been indoctrinated, if you will. Had subliminal messaging applied to her to make her form certain opinions. We don't know whether or not that was ever applied to Dr. Jimenez. Dr. Jimenez certainly is on the inside knowing that that's what they want. And he's suggesting what Kidman's uncovering now on these whiteboards are diagrams for what we know of as STEM. And he named it there as STEM, and he's going to explain a little bit more about it. But it would give Mobius direct control or direct input to the subconscious. And so that's why we think that Mobius was involved in wanting to control the world by controlling the subconscious minds of people to get them to act in certain ways. They want to move their 10% from being just fear inside.
This research here, this is exactly what we've been looking for. I call it STEM. I'm sure you and your superiors will find this most satisfactory.
You mentioned the design was from a pupil of yours. In that case, where do you fit in?
He is an unstable individual. Perhaps it is better that I continue to be the one to contact in this situation.
I'd like you to bring this man in. We should all be able to have a productive conversation. What did you say his name was?
Ruben Victoriano.
So here, pretty early on, we're still in chapter 1 of her DLC. She already gets the name Ruben Victoriano. It's not a large leap from Ruben Victoriano to Ruvik. Understand that Ruvik might be the ghost in the machine. You also see that Jimenez made the mistake of mentioning that Ruben was involved, a pupil was involved. The pupil construct is something that might have felt stretched when we were mentioning it inside of the hallucinations or the ghostly appearances that Sebastian saw in chapter 9. But we called it out early because we already knew this, right? We already knew that he considered him a pupil. So even before he became, when he was a young man, when he was still just a sociopath, dissecting animals and poking at their brains, even then Dr. Jimenez was involved and encouraging his research and his development. And then we saw in chapter 10 of the main game that the ghostly conversation between Ruben and Jimenez, that Jimenez was shocked and horrified by what Ruben was doing to the Elk River villagers that had gone missing. The dissecting them and poking at their brains, right? But then we also saw back in chapter 9 that
there's something wrong with this place.
you can hear the two off in the distance.
That's
there,
where Leslie was
Sebastian
before.
and
now those two, where are they headed?
and Joseph. Unfortunately, in the dark, you can't. In the regular game, you can see them walking over there, but you're in a kind of a cutscene. You can move, but you can't. I couldn't shine the light, so I couldn't show you that they were up there.
Status terminated. Please contact Biometrics for reauthentication.
So look at that. It's lucky Biometrics is right here. We can redo our authentication. Okay, but so as we were talking, Mobius is wanting to have a more direct influence. They want to move their 10% from, say, from a geopolitical perspective, that 10% of fear might be what people would call fear-mongering. The world's going to burn, the planet's going to end, we're going to go to war, these people are trying to take your jobs, these people, the other side always wants something. That's fear-mongering, and that's how often, to make the fear stop, you put your hope in somebody that can make these geopolitical things that seem out of your control to be inside your control by finding a savior, and by presenting the fear and then becoming the savior, the person that can end the fear. They gain their consent. They gain your 90%. They gain control over you.
But you have to stay focused. It will take you a while to get your bearings, but you'll be better off than the others.
And about the others.
I told you before, completely expendable. They have no bearing on the mission. If they get in the way, you know what to do.
Now that last part, if they get in the way, you know what to
Find
do.
Leslie and
That
bring him
starts
back.
to sound not so
That's
much as
all that
expendable as disposable. And, that starts to be a problem for Kidman. But they want to move their 10% influence over the world, these powerful families and institutions that Dr. Jimenez was talking about in that first tape of his that was number 16.
Facial, hand, and neural profile.
That he's
I don't
wanting,
think anyone's gonna help me out.
that they're
with
wanting to
this.
move that 10% influence to something a little bit more visceral, a little bit more direct contact into the subconscious minds of the people that they're wanting to influence.
Facial profile constructed.
This is all information that Kidman's probably not supposed to really have. She doesn't seem to be at the level of knowledge that maybe Jimenez would be. And her subconscious is rebelling in ways that makes her think that maybe she's on the outside of Mobius. And therefore her security credentials inside of here have been broken. Now it's important to realize that this may not have any reflection on reality outside. Her credentials in here, Mobius may not be seeing this in the sense, they may not be seeing it at the level of detail that her subconscious is generating for her. They probably understand that she's looking for Leslie still, that she's trying to do the job that she's supposed to do, but they may not be completely understanding that her subconscious, in other words, her security clearance outside the world has probably not been removed.
Whoa.
Scanning. Please stay still until procedure is complete.
We're going to leave you there with that cliffhanger. Find out tomorrow, or at least in the next episode, whether or not she gets caught. All right, thanks. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.